And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very, very special day, the 6th day of May 2022. And hey, what's happening out there? There's a weather. Let's take a look at what actually is happening with the weather. As we know that it is going to be an extreme weather condition which is coming up. But right now here in Brisbane, it is 21 degrees and partly sunny. Hey, it's wonderful to have your company. Let's hear from the weatherman himself from Channel 7's office to see what sort of research have they done and what. So, can you tell us what can we expect with this weather condition? Yes.
Hi everybody, Tony Orton from 7 News here. Obviously plenty of talk at the moment around the potential for a significant rain event across Queensland next week. The models have been building on it for a while now, and we're gaining confidence that we will indeed see significant rain across a large part of Queensland. And the way it's shaping up at the moment, we could also see plenty of flooding as well, so something to watch. I'll bring you across here to the screens, and one of the main causes of this is the temperatures in the upper atmosphere. Here we have basically a pool of cold air here spinning away over southeastern states today. That has actually broken off the polar vortex over Antarctica down to the bottom of your screens. As we move ahead into Friday and Saturday, eventually it'll go slowly. Basically, we're expecting this pool of cold air to move up, just grazing past south of Queensland. That will bring a drop in temperatures, but also help drive a significant rain event. So, checking the current situation as we move to the left here. At the moment, we've got some patchy showers and storms over the Darling Downs, moving into areas south of Toowoomba at the moment, and further west over the Maranoa and Warrego. No storm warnings, not too much in it for now. As we look ahead, we're expecting that trough system to move across the southeast tomorrow, so we'll see showers overnight tonight, and then probably some more activity into Friday afternoon. Probably plenty of dry breaks into Friday morning, so it's not going to be too wet just yet. We'll see similar conditions into Saturday, showers picking up on Sunday, and then as we move into more so Monday and Tuesday, right through next week, we're expecting a significant rain band to develop. Here are the forecast rain totals added up over that period of time. Especially from Tuesday through to next Friday or Saturday, we are expecting widespread rain pretty much over the eastern half of the state, east of about Longreach and Charleville. Most spots should get at least 50 millimetres. Some could even push up to 300 or 400 millimetres. You can see the purple on the maps here, parts of the southeast, maybe Central Highlands and Coalfields and Central Coast, up in around the 200 millimetre mark. Some of the higher resolution modelling is going for higher totals than that. But it's early days. We don't know exactly if these bullseyes will hit these areas, but what we do know is that with rain falling over a protracted period of time and those potential for heavy falls, we're likely to see significant flooding, especially through Western Queensland and parts of the coast. I'll have more details as we can start to really narrow down what's likely to happen here on 7 News in coming days. And please keep on top of the forecasts and stay safe.
And thank you very much for that report. Well, yes, we'll keep you updated as well. Right now, back on the election trail. So Mark Humphries is going to take a look at what are the strategies for the coalition going into this campaign.
This election, you've got a choice. Stick with a government you know and love, well, a government you know, or elect a government you don't know. Because let's face it, we barely know Anthony Albanese. He's only been in Parliament since 1996. I mean, who is this guy? We know exactly who Scott Morrison is. He's a hairdresser, a barista, a welder filing for workers' comp, and sometimes he's even a Prime Minister. But what do we know about Anthony Albanese? Well, we know one thing, he sure doesn't know the unemployment rate.
I think it's 5.4, sorry.
Remember that, Gaff? Don't forget it. Please, it's all we've got. We're living in a world full of instability, climate change, inflation, Bennifer. Australia needs consistency, not chaos. Before the campaign, Anthony Albanese lost weight. You just can't trust him. And so many of the criticisms directed at Scott Morrison are just flat out wrong. Out of touch? This guy's always touching voters. They can't keep their hands off him. And believe me, they try.
I'm only shaking your hand if you give more funding to our RFS.
This is a government with nothing to hide. We've also got nothing to show, but we've got nothing to hide. Except maybe our candidate for Warringah.
If you win the seat, you're going to have to answer some questions, Miss Steve.
Stick with the coalition, and you're in safe hands. Do those hands hold a hose? Definitely not. But can those hands shred? Well, I'll let you be the judge.
I can't remember the words. Oh.
Okay, so they can't shred. But it could be worse, because a vote for Anthony Albanese is a vote for Prime Minister Skrillex. So, as you head to the polls, remember the coalition has kept unemployment low. And rising inflation, well, that wasn't us. So, unemployment us, rising inflation someone else. Anyway, now's not the time to change horses in midstream. If there's one thing you can say about the Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison and Give It a Week Dutton government, it's that we don't change horses
in midstream.
So they're very well put together there, I must say. These guys are very, very good. Well, right now, we know that the Treasurer, Joseph Frydenberg, and independent Dr. Monique Ryan face off in this seat. Let's take a look at that report.
The leafy, affluent streets of Melbourne's inner east haven't seen a political contest like it. Every vote counts in a once safe seat held by Robert Menzies, and it's getting a bit personal.
Mr Frydenberg, you're the Treasurer for New South Wales.
I'm the member for Kooyong. I'm the Treasurer of Australia.
A room full of undecided voters grilled the pair on everything from China to state rights. Dr Ryan sticking to her climate pitch.
This is a government that does not have a plan for net zero by 2050. It has a plan for a plan.
The Treasurer knows he's in a fight to retain his seat. Changing demographics and the coalition's shift away from the centre makes Kooyong vulnerable to a protest vote.
And they want to give us a kick for that. At the end of the day, that may not leave me as being the local member, which is, of course, not what I want.
So, who won?
I think Josh won the debate. Monique Ryan was more focused on the climate change.
Very equal, considering Josh's experience and Monique's, a newbie to the game.
I'd say Monique.
Monique.
It was very impressive, very articulate.
It's shaping up as a big final 2 weeks. Richard Willingham, ABC News, Melbourne.
And it is a fight as it's reckoned, and quite a lot happening out there. And sometimes it's getting a little bit too personal as well. Well, right now, as we know, that the indigenous owners of the land have always been in a battle with Rio Tinto, Adani, and the other, BHPs, etc. So what is, in this case, Rio Tinto going to do to rebuild its trust with the indigenous community?
Jakob Stausholm, how confident are you that the slowdown we're seeing globally is not going to turn into a recession?
Well, I can give no guarantees. The good news for Rio Tinto is that we are used to being able to deal with the business cycles. I mean, there are, of course, a couple of indicators that are a bit concerning right now. On the other hand, what we see is that the Chinese economy, the Chinese government are taking measures to stimulate the Chinese economy, and the Chinese economy is very important for business conditions for Rio Tinto and for the world.
And how do you see the iron ore price performing with what's happening in China?
Yeah, no, we never give any projections of the iron ore price, but it has remained strong this year, despite the fact that the steel production has gone down quite significantly in the first quarter. But what I just said is that China have just announced that they will intensify infrastructure investments, and that tends to be good for demand of iron ore. So I remain hopeful.
On Indigenous relations, does Rio Tinto support the Commonwealth Government legislating minimum mandatory standards for cultural heritage protection?
Look, we have always been very supportive of regulations. We have recently been through regulatory changes in WA. But over and above that, we are setting our own standards. We really believe very much that the major part of it is between us and the individual traditional owner groups, where we are trying to build the right relationships. We talk about co-management of the land. We will of course meet any regulatory requirements, but very often we go over and above that.
You're a member of the WA Chamber of Mines. It's opposed to the federal government setting minimum protection standards, saying it would be needless duplication. Will you maintain your membership of the industry body?
We have no plans for changing our current memberships at the moment.
You said today you'll focus on listening and resetting relationships with Indigenous groups, but it's been put to me by Indigenous leaders that if you're serious about that, a practical step would be to force the WA Chamber into supporting greater protections or to quit.
Look, that is, it's a very difficult, it's a very complicated and long-lasting consultation. What I think, what we believe is that legislation has progressed, but what I've said as well is that we're not just complying with the law, we are setting standards over and above that, and it's as I said, about building relationships and finding the right way of co-management of the land where we operate. We start seeing that in some places. I'm very encouraged from that, and we want that everywhere. Legislation is only part of the solution.
Moving to climate, which is another major issue for you, members of the coalition have said that the net zero by 2050 isn't a commitment, that it is dead. How worried would you be if Australia backs away from net zero by 2050?
Look, I'm quite practical. We are a global company. We are very, very clear. Rio Tinto will be net zero by 2050. Most nations have got that target. It's not for me to be a politician, and what I notice is that there has been a good focus on action in this country, and we are pushing further actions. We are trying to do everything we can to develop renewable energy here in Australia in order to decarbonise our assets.
How worried would you be if Australia backs away from net zero by 2050, which has been raised by some in the coalition, given there's a risk of carbon tariffs on your iron ore if we do?
No, but look, we're just crystal clear about our position. The last thing we want to do is to try to influence anything. There is a federal election happening, and that's for the people of Australia and not for me. But leave no doubt, we believe that climate change is important to address because we are a company that has a major carbon footprint, and therefore our targets are reducing 15% in 25 and 50% by 2030 and being net zero in 50. It's a global commitment, and it's not going to change, and we are pushing forward with a number of initiatives as we speak. Tomorrow I will be up at our new iron ore mine, Gudai-Darri, where we are building a major solar farm. Every day new solar cells are coming into the Pilbara in our operation, so it's something that is happening.
Jakob Stausholm, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for that update, because as we know, that climate change does play a very, very big role. Well, right now, as we know, earlier in the week, we looked at the real estate update with Usha Chandra. What's happening with the auction rates? Because she did report on the low number of listings with auctions.
When you're out and about at these auctions, over the last month, where prices have been pretty flat in those two main markets of Sydney and Melbourne, what's going on in the mind of sellers? Because that's a significant drop in listings for auctions.
It is. What we're seeing is it's the first time that interest rates have risen for a decade, and people are starting to get a little bit nervous. So sellers are considering whether or not it is a good time to put their homes on the market. So we have been seeing over the last number of weeks lower numbers of buyers going through properties, lower numbers of people at auctions, and fewer people actually bidding at auctions. And I think all of that is starting to reflect in the number of homes for sale and what's happening in the market at the moment.
Right, so the buyers are less keen as well from what you're seeing.
That's right. Buyers are getting a little bit nervous about what is going on with interest rates and other things at the moment. They're taking a little bit of a pause, because if you're a buyer and you're shopping at the moment and you've got a pre-approval in place, if you haven't purchased yet and that pre-approval is about to expire, when you go back to your bank, they're going to assess you at the raised interest rates. So there's going to be folks out there that are not necessarily going to be able to shop with the same budget because they may not be approved for that same budget. It may be less.
Right, okay, so that's having a material effect on those pre-approvals. I should say that it's not uniform across the board. In Brisbane, auction listings are pretty flat this week. In Adelaide, they're actually up on last week as well. Let's talk about house prices. So the chief economist at AMP, Shane Oliver, reckons that house prices could drop 15% in Sydney and Melbourne by the end of next year. Other economists don't think it's going to be that much. Do you want to take a stab?
I don't think that we're necessarily going to see drops as much as that. I do think we have good fundamentals that do underpin the market. As soon as our borders start to reopen and we have people coming in, migration hasn't happened for the last few years. So I think that the fundamentals are still there. But I do think that people are a little bit cognizant of where they are for their own personal circumstances, and they're just taking a little bit of extra care in what the next step is in relation to buying or selling a home.
So, Wendy, what are you advising clients then who are coming to you saying, look, I think I want to move, maybe I want to get something bigger, maybe I want to get something further out, just a bit of a change. Are you telling them to go for it now, or are you suggesting that they wait for a bit? What's your advice?
I think what we're going to see is the next 2 to 4 months, things are going to be okay for selling, but I think then things may become a little bit more of a question mark for people that are looking at what's going on with interest rates, because we do feel that there will be some more interest rates that occur over the rest of the year, and so that's something to take into consideration. One of the things that I do say to clients is, how long are you going to be looking to hold this home? Because if you're looking at a 10-year plus purchase, well then over time real estate has shown that it does go up. So that is something that I do suggest to clients that they consider. And so I always say, when's the best time to buy or sell? It's when you're ready, not necessarily what is going on in the market.
The key message there is that time to sell is when you are ready. Well, of course, investors look at it in a slightly different manner because they want a good return on the things. So before going to India, let's take a look at Ukraine situation.
Today, the whole free world got united around Ukraine. Countries, companies, international organizations, and most importantly, people. Now you too are among them. Thank you. Only together we have the potential to stop the war that Russia has started and to rebuild what Russia has destroyed. Together we can help freedom defeat tyranny. This fundraising platform is a part of Global United 24 initiative that has been launched to support Ukraine. Here, in one click, you can donate funds to protect our defenders, to save our civilians, and to rebuild Ukraine. All funds will be transferred to the National Bank of Ukraine and allocated to the relevant ministries. Reports will be updated every 24 hours. Every donation matters for victory. Donate to protect. Donate to save. Donate to rebuild. Today, Ukraine is fighting not only for its own freedom, but for the freedom of the whole democratic world. We will always remember your contribution to the victory of Ukraine, to the victory of freedom. Thank you.
And there you go. There's a plea from the representative there. And if you are in a position, please do go ahead and support that. We're right now going to India, but before we go to our daily India report, here's a different report coming from Delhi, and scientists there are blaming the climate change for India's deadly heat wave.
I'm standing in front of this landfill pile. It is the equivalent of 17 stories high. It spreads across an area of about 50 football fields here in the north of Delhi. And as you can see, these firefighters are putting out a blaze that's been going for the past week or so. Now, it started on the 26th of April, just as a heat wave engulfed India. We have seen record-breaking temperatures, the highest temperatures for April in India since records began about 120 years ago. As that heat has been affecting people here in this country, this rubbish pile spontaneously combusted, and it's led to the smoke that you're seeing behind me, which is affecting neighbouring villages and slums, people who live around this rubbish area. Now, this heat wave that's been experienced over the last week has seen temperatures above 40 degrees in New Delhi, the capital where I am. And scientists have said that that heat wave is also to do with global warming, a changing climate that has led to a delayed monsoon, a lack of rain, which has created these dry conditions perfect for the hot weather that we have been experiencing. Now, there are calls from researchers for the Indian government to create a heatwave plan on a national scale. They say it's important to have measures in place in order to help people who are working on the streets. They say that people from poorer backgrounds are the ones that are going to be affected by these conditions the most. But what they say is that this situation, what you can see, is a message for the international community that countries like Australia could experience conditions like this hot weather that we've experienced here in India if nothing is done about climate change.
Well, there you go. It is in the end coming on to the climate change. And of course, we have had this debate before many times on many occasions on climate change. It is something which is there. And of course, you know, from where it reported, right in front of that big, huge pile of rubbish, that is man-made. So, you know, there are many things that we can do, but there are also things beyond our control as well. Right now, it's time to go to our actual Daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you reports, interviews, features and much more on India and the Indian diaspora. On the final leg of his three-nation Europe tour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met French President Emmanuel Macron on 4th May. The first international visitor that President Emmanuel Macron physically met after winning the French election on April 24th is the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Macron and Modi on 4th May discussed issues of bilateral and mutual interests as well as regional and global developments amid Russia's aggression against Ukraine. India and France on May 4th called for an immediate cessation of hostilities in Ukraine.
The Prime Minister has invited President Macron to visit India at the earliest possible opportunity. I would also like to mention that on the sidelines, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also met his French counterpart, Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian, during this visit. On Ukraine, there was a broad understanding of each other's position. The two leaders agreed that close coordination and engagement was important so that both India and France can play a constructive role in the evolving situation.
In a tweet earlier, PM Modi described his visit to France as very fruitful. Modi invited Macron to visit India again to deepen cooperation on defense technology and transition to clean energy. Thus, Modi has concluded his three-nation Europe tour. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on May 4th also met his counterparts of Finland and Iceland to strengthen the bilateral ties. PM Modi on 4th May held a series of meetings, among them a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister of Iceland, Katrin Jakobsdottir, in Copenhagen. The meeting took place on the sidelines of the second India-Nordic Summit. During the meeting, both leaders discussed ways to further strengthen economic cooperation, especially in the sectors of geothermal energy, blue economy, renewable energy, food processing, education including digital universities and culture. Modi also met Finland counterpart Sanna Marin in Copenhagen, Denmark on the sidelines of the India-Nordic Summit. Sharing about his interaction, PM Modi tweeted, "Meeting was very fruitful. This is immense potential in expanding the India-Finland digital partnership, trade partnership and investment linkages. We also discussed ways to deepen cultural ties between our nations." At the Nordic Summit, the Nordic Prime Minister strongly condemned the unlawful and unprovoked aggression against Ukraine by Russian forces, the joint statement of the second India-Nordic Summit said. This statement was issued after Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended a summit with Prime Ministers of Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Finland and Denmark. During the summit, the Prime Ministers pledged to continue to deepen cooperation between the Nordic countries and India and focused on key issues related to international peace and security, including the conflict in Ukraine, multilateral cooperation, green transition and climate change, the blue economy, innovation and digitalization. The Prime Minister reaffirmed the importance of free trade as a driver for achieving inclusive growth and realizing the Sustainable Development Goals.
Prime Minister Modi gave a very elaborate understanding of the space from where Indian position originates and comes for, which is which calls for the immediate cessation of hostilities and the resolution to the ongoing situation through diplomacy and dialogue. The two leaders also spoke very extensively, exchanged views very extensively on the cascading effect of the situation in Ukraine in terms of global food shortages, shortages of commodities such as fertilizer, and how the two countries can partner together in order to address some of these challenges which are very real and felt on the ground. And as I mentioned earlier on, there is a very clear understanding of each other's position, and they did agree to stay in touch and coordinate very closely so that as the situation evolves, they can both individually or together play a constructive role in the situation in order so that all these challenges which I talked about.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi tried his hands on a dhol drum as he arrived in Copenhagen in Denmark. Watch this video. For the first time in 4 years, the Reserve Bank of India on May 4th raised its key lending rate by 40 basis points to 4.40% with immediate effect. The Reserve Bank of India hiked its key lending rate by 40 basis points to 4.40%. The central bank also hiked the cash reserve ratio by 50 basis points. The decision was taken by the Monetary Policy Committee in an off-cycle meeting with the Central Board held on May 2nd to 4th. RBI Governor Shaktikant Das said the decision was taken in the view of rising inflation, geopolitical tensions, high crude oil prices and shortage of commodities globally, which have impacted the Indian economy. This was the first hike in the policy rate since August 2018, which would increase the cost of borrowing for corporates as well as individuals. The latest surprise hike completely reverses the COVID support off-cycle rate cut in May 2020.
The liability side of the balance sheet of the bank, which are talking about the deposits, the bank may increase the deposit rate also. The first issue will be there with the banking sector is increasing repo rate. But definitely the lending money, short-term money, will be costly for the borrowers. And also it is arresting the inflation rate. I think this is our feeling that it will be help to the country economy to arrest the inflations by, you can say, increasing the repo rate by 40 basis point. And beside that, CRR having the increase by 0.50%.
After sending missions to the moon and the Mars, the Indian Space Research Organization is now planning a mission to Venus, eyeing a launch window of December 2024. Indian Space Research Organization is now readying a spacecraft to orbit planet Venus. The objective is to study what lies below the surface of the solar system's hottest planet and also unravel the mysteries under the sulfuric acid clouds enveloping it. Addressing a day-long meeting on Venusian science, ISRO Chairman S. Somnath said the Venus mission has been conceived, a project report made and money identified. He urged scientists to focus on high-impact outcomes. In his inaugural address, Somnath said, quote, "Building and putting a mission on Venus is possible for India in a very short time as the capability today exists with India," end quote. The space agency is eyeing the December 2024 window for its launch, with orbital maneuvers planned for the following year when Earth and Venus would be so aligned that the spacecraft would be put in neighboring planets' orbit using a minimum amount of propellant. The next similar window would be available in 2031. Rain slashed different parts of India, providing much-needed respite from the scorching heat. Hailstorms and rains in parts of India have provided a much-needed respite from the sweltering heat in the national capital, Delhi. Isolated pockets have reported drizzling with strong winds, which in turn brought down the mercury and left a cool breeze in the aftermath. The mercury is set to rise by 4 to 5 notches over the next 6 days. However, no heat wave is predicted. Rains lashed Chandigarh city and parts of Haryana and Punjab on 4th May, giving relief to the people from the hot weather conditions. Rains also lashed Chandigarh's adjoining towns Mohali in Punjab and Panchkula in Haryana. Bhubaneswar, the capital of Odisha, and Bengaluru also witnessed rainfall. Bollywood celebrity director Karan Johar announces season 7 of Coffee with Karan to premiere on OTT. A week after reports claimed that the 7th season of Coffee with Karan was under production, host and filmmaker Karan Johar on May 4th said that his popular celebrity chat show will not return for the new chapter. Johar.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in this segment, and we'd like to thank PIOTV for the daily India report, and on this occasion we'd like to wish Gupta ji Senior, Kayan Gupta ji, a very, very happy 90th birthday. Still going strong, looking very good. Wishing you all the very best from all of us here at Australian Indian Radio. Well, ladies and gentlemen, until tomorrow, and don't forget that tomorrow we have 2 segments. Aapka Sehat, which is a monthly program of the Indian Medical Association of Queensland at 10 a.m. and 9 a.m. we'll obviously have our news segment. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Remain safe and be on the watch out for that extreme weather condition which is supposed to be bringing a lot of rain. It could change because it's based on the movement that it has from the pole moving through Tasmania coming our way, but wind conditions and other things could move it away, but at the moment that's the way it's looking like. Going to be lots of rain over the next few days, but please keep updated and please remain safe. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.